Yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship. The CRO and the RevOps leader, they go hand in hand, right? One can't really go without the other. If we think about RevOps and what RevOps is trying to achieve.
David, good morning, man.
Good morning, Adam. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, I hear you. School's back, right?
Yep.
Hit some traffic on the way in this morning.
I felt it. I was like, why is there stop and go traffic? Oh, that's right.
I know. It's that time. Our kids, we got school supplies all over the house. Things are everywhere, trying to get ready for back to school. It's just crazy. It comes around so quickly.
That's right.
So, well, man, excited to be here. Just want to welcome everybody to the podcast again. This is the RevOps Recruiters podcast, and our mission is to provide insights and best practices around finding, hiring, and retaining top revenue operations talent.
You got it. You got it. We're your hosts, David and Adam.
Yeah. So what are we going to jump into today, David? What are we talking about?
Today, we're going to explore the relationship between the CRO and the RevOps leader. We've observed many different scenarios. We've seen the good, the bad, misalignment, right? It's so critical to hire the right person in both of those roles to make that relationship really accelerate. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
Awesome.
Today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Before we jump in there, though, we brought something to the show the last couple of weeks, and the limerick.
The limerick.
And, you know, I don't know if it's a win or a loss, but it feels like 2 games played and that's it. I feel like it kind of ran its course.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, anybody listening, if you feel like, hey, man, that was the highlight of the podcast.
The best thing you guys have done in a long time.
Exactly. Best thing you put together is a limerick that ChatGPT wrote for you. So if you want that to come back, let us know. Otherwise, we feel like 2 games played, wins, losses, we're not sure, but no more in the game. So,
R.I.P.
So we're just going to jump right over that for now. So
that's right.
I love this. We'll dive into the relationship, CRO, RevOps. But before we kind of go into some of those characteristics that we're going to talk about, help define these 2 roles for us. So let's start with the CRO. When we say CRO, what does that role entail? How would you define that?
Yeah. I think of the chief revenue strategist of the company, right? The executive that is the champion of all revenue activities. And so they're overseeing and optimizing all revenue generating activities in a company. That includes marketing to sales to success, renewals, product, anything that touches that where any revenue generating activity really. And that is strategy and operations. So they oversee both.
Yeah.
To be able to actually achieve the outcome.
That's great. And so now it makes sense if they're also over the operations side. So let's define that RevOps leader function. Like how would we talk about it a lot, but let's go ahead and put a definition around it today.
Yeah. In the most simplest form, it is the backbone to the go-to-market strategist. And so I think of it as the entire blueprint behind all revenue. Mm-hmm. And so that is, we think of the RevOps system as technology, process, data, and people. Yeah. And so it's really operationalizing the strategy and executing against it.
Sure.
And making it come alive. And so that includes driving efficiency, right, across processes and really making that customer journey seamless.
Got it. No, that's great. So we've got a good definition of what the CRO title looks like, what the RevOps title looks like. And you alluded to this earlier in the conversation, but we've had the fortunate opportunity, in some cases unfortunate opportunity, of observing the relationship between CROs and RevOps leaders.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to attempt today is to really unpack some of those characteristics that we've seen that make for a strong relationship between these 2.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. I think one of the first ones that we see is just this idea of trust between these 2 individuals, the CRO and the RevOps leader. So when we say trust, what exactly does that look like? What does that mean to you? Yeah.
Yeah, we think about this relationship, and in this relationship, trust is one of the key ingredients, and that comes through supporting and valuing the other, right? Both of these roles are SMEs, subject matter experts. You've got a chief strategist, and then you've got the RevOps leader who we're wanting to bring into this advisory role, right? That is this whole journey of elevating RevOps, not just as a back office role, but recognizing that both of them bring something extremely valuable to the table. And if we can unite those two things, the strategy and the execution, that's when the magic happens. And so trust comes from appreciating each other, right? Appreciating each other's efforts. And that builds a healthy business culture, right? Because if you model that, that ripples through the organization.
Yeah. Open communication, another big part of that, these two having the ability to communicate with each other. So what are some of the, dive in a little deeper under that open communication side?
Yeah, it's really working through really difficult moments in a business. There's the mountaintop experiences, but then there's moments where you have to have tough conversations, right? And you have to lay aside your own emotions, your own insecurities, your own whatever, right? Lay that aside and focus on something objectively. And that is rooted in data and insights. And so, open communication, it really builds respect. And a key ingredient there is humility.
Yeah.
And so I think a great leader is a humble leader. And so in order to get this trust, in order to get this open communication, they both have to be extremely humble individuals. And then being open to feedback, right? I mean, that's a very difficult thing, but it's the only way forward. You have to be able to welcome that feedback. You have to be able to listen to someone else's perspective, right? And allow someone else to challenge it, right? But then the other person has to be open to that coming back too.
Yeah.
And getting to that win-win is so critical in this relationship.
Yeah, I love that you say relationship there, because really that's what this is, right? If you think about any relationship, whether it's a significant other, whether it's a good friend, the reality is at some point in that relationship, it's great when everything's good and you're both on the same page. But at some point, you're going to come to a position where there's differing ideas. And if you come to it with trust first, that's when you can work through the challenges that are there. If you don't have trust, that's when things begin to break down in that relationship.
And data is really the ingredient in being able to come together in a good, objective way, right? If you're just coming together with subjective, with a subjective mindset and saying, hey, no, you're wrong. No, I'm wrong because I'm feeling this, or you're feeling this. Now let's put the feelings aside. Let's look at what is the data saying, right? You've proposed this thing. I'm bringing you this thing that's rooted in data. Let's work through it and be able to get to the bottom of what is truth here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So.
Well, let's go ahead and let's actually jump into that idea there. So you've already kind of opened that up around objectivity, data, the importance of that. So we think one of the important components of these relationships is being objective towards what the data is saying. So when we say that, what does that mean for you? Unpack objectivity a little bit as a part of this relationship.
Yeah, it's really the confidence and trust in the data, right? And that's, in a lot of ways, if you think about it, that's the crux of a revenue operations leader's success is, can you put the truthful insights, actionable insights in front of someone, in front of business leaders, in front of the CRO, right? If that's not happening, it immediately breaks down the confidence in your ability, right? And so really, getting rid of that emotion, I keep coming back to that, decision making. We have an entire C-suite that has all these different, emotions and ideas and things they want, things they think should be done this way, right? Comfort's another thing, and really getting into conversations, getting everyone together and going, here's the data. And that's what we're talking about, right? That's the true value of this relationship, is coming in and saying, here's where you want to go. Here's the growth goal. Here's where the business wants to go. Let's talk about what is the data actually saying about our customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I like that because we've observed situations where maybe one of those leaders really trusts the data and works from a position of saying, I want to use data to drive insights, but maybe the other one is saying, well, I don't know that I can trust this data, and so I want to operate off a gut feel, or I want to operate off of kind of the emotional side of things. And so the perfect scenario is when we see both of them saying, hey, we trust the data, we believe the data is valid, and if we're going to use data to validate our successes, the things that we're moving forward in, and we're also going to trust the data to expose our failures or expose our weaknesses. And we're okay with that because we can trust the data. And so having objectivity versus subjectivity is such a big part of this relationship.
And it doesn't always feel good, right? I mean, you think about this in the rest of your life and really in life in general, right? Good things usually are hard to attain, and there's a level of discomfort that you have to be okay with to get to that result. Losing weight, right? Getting in shape.
My alarm went off at 4:30 this morning.
Getting
that
up
didn't
early.
feel good.
Right.
Choosing to eat something healthy versus something that just tastes good, right? That doesn't always feel good.
Yeah.
But those are going to drive me towards the goals that I want of being healthy overall, right?
Yeah, and that's why when we're talking about achieving a RevOps transformation, and a big part of that is laying down that, right? It's organizations that are stuck in comfort and that are change averse that tend to have a hard time with revenue operations.
Yeah.
Right. You have to humble yourself across the board. And so that's so critical.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now that you've even mentioned that, I want to move down and let's have that conversation. So one of the things that we put down as a characteristic between these is just that adaptability and curiosity. So this idea of change is okay, but let's unpack that. What does that actually mean? What are we talking about when we say adaptable and curious?
Yeah, words that come to mind: scrappy, agile, nimble, the ability to pivot based on data, right? And that's the caution here, is that doesn't mean chasing every shiny object, right? Every new tool really quickly, right? I found something, let's apply it. No, this is where you hit the pause button. Again, both leaders come together and go, what are we trying to achieve here? What does that customer journey look like? And does this actually fit and enable us to continue to grow? Does it maximize something? Does it unlock a new growth level, right? And so really that curiosity is something innate, right? You have to be obsessed with constantly wanting to improve, constantly wanting to find the better way.
Yeah.
And that's in both of these roles. We truly believe that.
Yeah.
That can't just be the RevOps leader,
or
vice
either
versa,
one of them.
right?
You've got to have both of them believing in that.
It's part of the DNA.
Yeah.
And so, a big part of this is building that type of culture in an organization, and we believe the CRO and the RevOps leader spearhead that transformation. And so, constantly looking at how can we do things better, coming up with new ways to improve the offering, to improve processes, to improve technology across the entire system with the business objective and long-term goals in mind.
Yeah. And I think there's also added to that, I'd say there's this ability to know the difference between course corrections and change of directions.
Yeah.
So you need both of those in a business. But if you're changing direction every day or every week, people are going to say, well, where are we actually going? It doesn't seem like there's a cohesive vision here. But if you're not making any course corrections at all, and you're not saying, okay, what did we learn new this week or this month from our data that will help us make slight adjustments so we continue chasing the same goal that we're going after? So a good leader is going to know the difference between those two and apply the right one at the right time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great. Let's talk about another characteristic that we've seen that's been kind of powerful, and that's this idea of just constant collaboration. These roles, they have to be side by side.
Yeah.
They've got to be in each other's ears, having conversations. So when we say constant collaboration, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship. The CRO and the RevOps leader, they go hand in hand, right? One can't really go without the other. If we think about RevOps and what RevOps is trying to achieve, they have to be together in step, locked in step, and so you have to work together closely, right, in order to not miss anything, in order to continue to drive forward the goal And so that includes regular communication, right? A regular cadence. When we talk to candidates, we hear this oftentimes, that there wasn't really that open door. There wasn't really a good cadence. So breakdown of communication equals lack of trust equals it's a ripple effect, right? It can waterfall really quickly. And so having that open door policy, at least regular intentional meetings to connect, weekly or even daily stand-ups are great, right? Depending on the growth stage of your business too. Obviously that affects it. But
yeah, I mean, we've heard CROs say, listen, this person is the person that I'm talking to more than almost anyone else in the organization. I'm talking to them daily because they're helping me understand what is the data showing us, what do we need to adjust, what needs to be communicated, all those things.
Right. The CRO is coming into that war room and is going and is really wanting to drive change, which is a high risk role. I mean, you're coming in and you're about to disrupt some things, right? You're coming in, and the only way that you can properly do that without ruining your reputation, putting your neck on the line, is through proper data that's delivered through RevOps.
Sure.
And so those actionable insights enable those conversations to be able to influence stakeholders and drive the mission forward.
Yeah.
So it's mission critical. It's a chief
for
of
sure.
staff.
Chief of staff. We've heard people say that, CROs say that, I see this person as my chief of staff. What do they mean by that?
Yeah, they really make things happen, right? They keep the motion. They keep the motion going. So, leading teams, right, on the operational side, socializing ideas, right? Coming together with that CRO and going, here's what we want to do. This is what it's going to look like from an execution perspective, from a tactical perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, socializing that down and driving value in the lower chains, right? Because everybody has to be in. So driving that adoption, that's what it's all about. Adoption, I keep coming back to this. It's really the crux, right? If the whole organization is not bought into it and actually taking the steps, right? Adopting the new change, adopting those processes, putting in the right data into the simplistic, putting the right data in, then it's not going to work.
Sure.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And so you're uniting people, building culture through that as well. And that's what we call collaboration.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you talked about chief of staff here, because that relationship doesn't work unless we have this next ingredient that we're going to talk about, which is this whole idea of alignment. If these two people, the CRO and the RevOps leader, if they're not on the same page, if they're not aligned, then you can't have the trust that's going to allow that RevOps leader to be like a chief of staff to the CRO.
Yeah.
So if we've got alignment, let's talk about what that looks like. What does alignment between those two roles look like?
Yeah, you think about alignment. I think about you start at the very top. You're coming into an organization. What are you trying to get a pulse on? Vision. Okay. What is the vision of this business? What is the 3 to 5 year, right? Where are we today and where are we trying to go? And where's our target today? Where are we pointed in trying to achieve this goal? And is that feasible?
Sure.
Right? Doing the initial assessment. And so the alignment there is critical between RevOps and the CRO, because they do that part together.
Yeah.
The next thing, it trickles down from vision down to goals. In order to support the vision, what's the most important thing right now? Yeah. So establishing the goals.
Yeah, because we can't tackle everything, right?
Exactly.
We can't fix everything. So what's the most important things that we can be focused on right now?
Exactly.
And are we on the same page with those things?
That's right. And then it trickles down to KPIs and metrics.
Sure.
What do we measure? And this is the beauty of it, right? This is where RevOps comes in, and we can build the data structure to be able to measure and provide truth, provide this true north. And then communication. Alignment and communication, getting that one language in the organization is so important, right? Staying on the same page, driving towards the same goal, communication, cadence, it's a key ingredient.
Yeah, and we've had other CROs tell us, hey, listen, this person, I need them to be able to step into meetings for me if I'm not able to be there. If that CRO is normally leading a meeting with the go-to-market team leaders, and for some reason they're unavailable, if they're aligned, then that RevOps leader can step right in. They've got the same language, same vision, same goals, same KPIs, and they're able to communicate that. And so that's where that relationship just becomes so, so powerful. So the last thing that we want to talk about here, kind of last characteristic, and this is one that we love this one because it's so important, but just the idea of just high EQ, emotional intelligence, able to just read a room, know what's going on. Unpack that for us. What do we mean by this high EQ?
You said IQ as well, so I will say IQ as well. But yes, EQ. We think about the emotional intelligence side of the change management side of the skill set, and that's really what we're passionate about, right? Because it rounds out. It really helps get that adoption, right? It helps get the transformation underway. Navigating those complex relationships, keeping calm under pressure. That is such an important skill set, right? If you're a bull in a china shop, you're never going to be a successful leader in either of these roles. You have to be able to stay calm, calculated, right? Have that aptitude and be able to do that inner battle.
Yeah.
That's what it takes.
Yeah.
If somebody tells you something extremely difficult and your emotions start to flare up, or your mind is trying to dictate your behaviors, hitting the pause button internally and calming down. That is such a major part of this. And then pull versus push, right? How do you influence others in an organization that is change averse? It's through value, presenting ROI, right? Helping people see why what they do matters and how they could potentially do it better and how that affects them. And doing that all the way from the C-suite down to, and this is where RevOps helps, right? All the way down to the bottom tier in the organization. Sure. And then empathy. I mean, empathy, all of us need more empathy, right?
That's right.
So, being able to see somebody else's side and affirming,
sure,
right? Being able to say, hey, look, I see your side, validating that,
yeah,
right? Validating their experience and, not overwhelming them, but being able to have good conversations around what is truth here, and just constantly being aware of the other person's experience.
Yeah.
That takes an that can't just be in you, right? You have to be able to see this other person.
Yeah.
So you're people focused.
Sure.
You're, both of these roles have to be really good humans.
So you're
right?
saying that this RevOps role is not just about the data. Hey, I'm just going to sit here behind a spreadsheet.
Right.
No, they've got to be able to be in front of people and influencing and have all these same characteristics as well.
Absolutely. People, that's what it comes down to ultimately, right? Is you can implement all these things, but if you're not building that healthy culture and focused on getting people to get to the next level, helping people get to the next level, caring for people deeply, seeing them, validating them, and championing and shepherding them, you cannot achieve your ultimate goal.
Yeah, that's great. David, these have been fantastic. So real quick, kind of as we wrap up, I'm just going to recap of these. So we talked about these are the characteristics that we see in good relationships that work between a CRO and a revenue operations leader is when they both have these things. They have trust for each other. They operate from objectivity rather than subjectivity, right? They trust data. They're adaptable and they're curious. So they're looking for how can we make things better. They're in constant collaboration with each other. They're communicating all the time. They have alignment on what is being said, what they're chasing, what they're going after, and then they both possess a high level of EQ. And those are the characteristics. When we see those things, that's a winning relationship.
Right.
When you're missing those,
gets dicey.
And when they're not there at all, probably not going to work.
Right.
So, man, this is great, David. I appreciate all your thoughts on this. I think this is going to add a lot of value.
Absolutely, Adam.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the RevOps Recruiters podcast. If you found the information in this episode helpful, please consider subscribing. You can do that on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you have comments or suggestions for future podcasts, we'd love to hear them. Please put those in the comments section on YouTube. Finally, if you're looking to hire your first or next RevOps leader, we'd love to help. You can connect with us through our website at www.revsearch.io. Thanks again for listening.